Imagine that every one of you in this audience is an entrepreneur, and you're about to pitch your business to an investor, maybe over email, maybe face-to-face, or maybe in front of millions on national TV. And you've sacrificed everything to get to this point. This is your baby, your dream. And you think if you can only get this outside funding, that all of your problems will be solved, or maybe most of them. So you give your pitch, and there's a dramatic pause, and then the investor says, no.
Nobody sets out to be unfundable. You set out to build something real. You sacrifice time, money, relationships, and sleep. You put years into something and believe in it with everything you have. And somewhere between the idea and the ask, nobody cares to tell you those are two completely different conversations. This conversation is about you. The person who has decided that the reason you have yet to find success is because the right person hasn't seen it yet. That person is the variable nobody is talking about. It's the most uncomfortable conversation in the financing space. Telling someone their project needs work is easy, but telling someone they are the reason their project isn't getting funded is the conversation that ends relationships, generates hate, and, well, gets you unfollowed. So naturally, nobody says it. If they do, well, we know how that goes.
I'm asking you to do this for me.
Sorry, no.
Well, then fuck you!
So I'm going to say it. Let me show you what unfundable actually looks like in the wild. I wish this was a composite and hypothetical, but sadly, it's not. A real person who sent me a real message that I am going to read to you word for word, then dissect it with the same level of care and respect he extended to me. Let's call this person Chaz. His real name is just as douchey, but Chaz is what we will call him.
You are a douchebag. That's right, a douchebag.
And so, here it goes. And I quote, "We'll chat once you review the proposal. I'm not looking for a consultation on this, Sean, just to be honest. So I don't want to waste more of your time or mine. I'm looking for good people to partner up with to move this towards production. I need financing and smart people who actually want to be a part of seeing a significant ROI, not just in it to participate in making another fucking film that loses money or adding their names as a producer to pad their resume. I just want to be clear from the jump. Read the proposal, read our website, view the teaser trailer, and we'll go from there." End quote. The irony was he was asking me to come along for the ride while at the same time not wanting me to come along for the ride. So now read it the way an investor reads every single communication they receive, as a document about the person who wrote it. That is exactly what an investor does. In fact, that is exactly what I do before it goes to an investor. The person in the project are the attachment, but the person is what they're actually evaluating, line by line. And so here's the next section, and I quote, "We'll chat once you review the proposal," end quote. The very first thing Chaz has decided to lead with. What it communicates is this: the terms of our engagement are his to set before I've agreed to engage at all. He's not asked if I have time or if this is something I even work on. He has issued a prerequisite in that me and the people I work with do the homework first, then we talk to him. He's auditioning me while asking for my help before I know what he needs. That is not how professional relationships start, but rather how people who have confused their conviction with leverage to start conversations. Chaz believes the proposal is so compelling that the terms of access are his to dictate. He has not considered that I receive thousands of proposals weekly, that my time has value, or that the way someone asks for help tells me everything I need to know about what it will be like to work with them. I just showed you that the first sentence is literally already the problem. So now, here's a quoted section of that message. "I am not looking for a consultation on this, Sean," end quote. He's decided what he needs before understanding what his actual problem is. He's never spoken to me. He doesn't know what I do, how I approach deals, what I've seen, or what I might identify in the situation that he hasn't considered, and yet he has already eliminated my entire category of help just because he decided he doesn't need it.
It doesn't work that way!
The people who already know exactly what they need are almost always catastrophically wrong about what they need. That is not my opinion. That is years of watching people like this asshole fail because they have already decided the problem was elsewhere. Chaz doesn't want insight because he wants immediate execution with no questions asked, and he wants people to do what he has already decided needs to be done. It's that simple. Which means if his diagnosis is wrong, and the fact that he's sending cold messages to consultants suggests the diagnosis might be worth a second look, he has just pre-blocked every possible avenue of correction. And so now, here's another quoted section. I'm looking for good people to partner up with to move this towards production. He wants partners, not advisors who might challenge his assumptions, not professionals who might tell him something he doesn't want to hear. Partners in his direction toward his predetermined destination. A real partnership involves shared risk, shared decision-making, shared accountability for outcomes. What Chaz is describing is not a partnership, but recruitment, and the industry is rife with that kind of bullshit. He just wants people to join his movement to unattainable success. The distinction matters here because it tells you exactly how he will respond when things go wrong, which they always do, and how a real partner needs to have real conversation about what happened and why. So here's the next quoted section. I need financing and smart people who actually want to be a part of seeing a significant ROI. Ugh. If I had a nickel for every time I heard significant ROI, I'd finally have enough to pay them for investment. So hold that thought, because we're coming back to it. And here's the next quoted section. Not just in it to participate in making another fucking film that loses money or adding their names as a producer to pad their resume. This is actually the most interesting line in the entire message because it's the one place where Chaz demonstrates real awareness. The irony in all of this is that he knows the industry has a loss problem, that the vanity producer dynamic is real, that people attach their names to projects for reasons that have nothing to do with the financial return, and yet he reached out to me to take on all the roles that have nothing to do with me. He knows this, and he is furious about it, and yet here we are. It's like a guy explaining in detail why the porn business is fake as hell, then asking the fluffer to run finance.
That was the plan. Not a great plan.
The reason he's sending this message is because anyone evaluating this communication is not seeing someone who has transcended the problems of the industry. They are seeing someone who is angry at the industry's failures without having done the work to demonstrate they've avoided them in their own project. Knowing the problem exists is not the same as having it solved. And so broadcasting your frustration with everyone who came before you is not a substitute for showing an investor why your deal is different from the ones that lost money. So now here's the next quoted section. I just want to be clear from the jump. Read the proposal, review our website, view our teaser trailer, and we'll go from there. He has made it so clear that I now know the following things about Chaz without reading a single page of his shitty proposal. He sets terms before relationships are established, decided what kind of help he needs, filters for people who agree with him rather than people who might improve his position, and is frustrated with an industry, and so channeling that frustration outward rather than inward. So he believes the quality of his materials is sufficient to overcome whatever friction he's created with his opening approach. None of those things are in his proposal, but all of them are in the first message, and all of them are problems. So here's the next quoted section. There will be plenty of Sean types out there that will regret not being a part of this, so I'm not terribly concerned. LOL. End quote. There it is. And that is the most expensive sentence Chaz has ever written, and he added LOL at the end of it. Every rejection is someone else's failure of vision. Every no is evidence of other people's inability to see what he sees. He's not considered for a single moment that the past might contain information worth examining. He has instead constructed a worldview in which his project is so obviously correct that anyone who doesn't recognize it simply lacks the capacity to see clearly.
You serious?
Which means the following things are now permanently true about working with Chaz. Feedback will never land. If someone identifies a weakness in the project, Chaz will not hear it as useful information. He will hear it as evidence that the person giving the feedback doesn't understand what he's built. Red flags will never register. If something goes wrong, budget, overruns, distribution problems, investor cold feet, Chaz's first instinct will not be to examine his own decisions. It will be to identify who around him failed to execute his vision correctly.
It doesn't work that way!
The investor relationship will be adversarial the moment anything doesn't go to plan, and something always doesn't go to plan. Anyone who reads "There will be plenty of Sean types who regret not being a part of this" is reading a liability, and someone who has telegraphed exactly how they will behave when the inevitable difficulty arrives. Chaz has a fundable problem, and he is absolutely the last person who knows it.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Now I want to leave film entirely, because the worst thing I could let you do right now is watch what I just showed you and think, That's a filmmaker thing, and that's just what happens when artists try to do business. It is fucking not. And I won't even say I wish it were. What I just showed you is a human thing. It is what happens when a person becomes so invested in what they've built that the investment itself becomes the liability, and it happens in every industry where money is being sought by someone who has confused quality of their idea with the readiness to receive capital for it. So now I want to introduce you to Huey and Dewey. Huey and Dewey are startup founders, and they have a product that they believe in, and they are seeking $4.5 million. And so here's the message, and I quote, "Full transparency. Anything we have to invest ends us in our runway, which means we would be all in on you delivering, which is considered extreme high risk. So yeah, we will present this to everyone else, but if that is the case and the cost, then that's what we have to take to the rest. The goal is 4.5 million, end quote. A company with no cash flow left in runway is seeking 4.5 million in institutional capital is not a real company.
It's false. No way. Not this time. We created it. Not this time. No, not this time.
It's like a guy shitting his pants in a bank lobby and asking for $4.5 million because he has a vision for premium restrooms. From a finance sense, an institutional raise of that amount and no runway implies a seed or a seed plus round, as what we call the Series A deal size has migrated now toward 14 to 16 million median in 2026. The median Series A valuation in the US reached approximately $78 million by the start of 2026. Companies successfully closing these larger A rounds typically demonstrate at least 2.5 to 5 million in ARR with a proven track record of capital efficient growth. Top-tier Series A winners often show revenue growth exceeding 400 to 600% in the year prior, where those failing to bridge the gap often stagnate below 150%, which the current market increasingly views as flat performance. Huey and Dewey have less than 10K on hand, allegedly. And so that is not recurring revenue or monthly burn. 10K in the bank right now, allegedly, which is the entirety of their operational runway, and they are seeking $4.5 million. And so here's the next message, and I quote, "Which means we are all in on you delivering, which is considered extreme high risk." If you read that slowly, you will understand a lot happening inside it. They have disclosed that they are functionally insolvent, then frame their insolvency as something other than the person responsible for managing. Then they have labeled this arrangement as extreme high risk, as if giving the situation an accurate name makes it a reasonable thing to ask someone to step into. Extreme high risk is what an investor says about a deal when they're explaining why they're passing on it, because it is not selling a point, nor is it a description of an exciting opportunity. It is instead a description of a company that cannot survive its next billing cycle, but asking someone to bet their professional reputation on delivering results before the lights go out. It's like someone saying, "Trust me with your reputation, bro," while their company is one auto pay away from eating shit in the dark. No investor on earth puts $4.5 million into a company that cannot cover 10,000. Every person with real investment capital knows the difference between those two things before you finish your first sentence. Here's the next message, and I quote, "The goal is $4.5 million, end quote. They have ruled out a smaller raise that might actually be achievable given where they are in order to hold out for the raise that reflects where they believe they're going. Completely understandable human instinct, but also the instinct that keeps companies from surviving long enough to get where they're going." And the message continues, and I quote, "Hey guys, listen, I don't want to waste your time. Our team has not agreed with the 10K yet. If anything, we are discussing a loan right now. It's a no-go from us. We are also in discussions with Merrill Lynch, and they are seeking some warm intros with VCs." Merrill Lynch. I need to take a moment here because this name drop has earned the full treatment.
You full of shit. You understand that? You full of shit.
Merrill Lynch, formerly Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith Incorporated, is a wealth management firm, a subsidiary of Bank of America. It manages $2.8 trillion in client assets. It employs over 14,000 financial advisors. Its business is managing existing wealth for existing clients, retirement planning, estate management, portfolio advisory, wealth preservation across generations. And it has been doing so, and that very specific thing, since 1914. Merrill Lynch does not source early-stage venture capital deals for pre-revenue startups or broker warm introductions to VC firms on behalf of companies with 10K in runway.
It doesn't work that way!
Merrill Lynch's financial advisors are not in the business of calling their VC contacts to say, "Hey, I have a startup here that thinks they're building $1 billion company. You should take the meeting." That is not what Merrill Lynch is. That is not what Merrill Lynch does. That has never been what Merrill Lynch does, and anyone who has spent more than 6 minutes in finance knows that immediately. What this name drop communicates to someone who knows what Merrill Lynch actually does is one of two things. Either Huey and Dewey genuinely don't know what Merrill Lynch is, which raises serious questions about how they're going to deploy $4.5 million in institutional capital, or they do know and they're hoping the person within their circle doesn't, which raises different but equally serious questions about how they're going to manage an investor relationship built on trust.
That was the plan. Not a great plan.
Neither option closes the deal. The name drop is a tell, and it is the startup equivalent of a filmmaker saying, Netflix is interested. It sounds institutional at a difference and falls apart under 60 seconds with anyone who knows what they're talking about. This is what routine professional pressure produces from Huey and Dewey. A fabricated institutional relationship dropped into a conversation like a grenade with no pin. That is the information. The fact that this is what surfaces when the temperature rises 1 degree. And so now the exchange continues. And I quote, yeah, no worries, they're legit. You know how those kinds of things go anyhow. Everybody knows the CEO, yada yada, probably a whole bunch of nothing. This is a message about another contact, and what it accidentally reveals is that Huey and Dewey's network of institutional relationships, the ones they're using to manufacture credibility, is something they themselves privately described as probably a whole bunch of nothing. Are you fucking kidding me? It's like a guy selling a room on his powerful connections, then privately describing those connections as a bag of expired dicks. They know on some level underneath that self-awareness is the most heartbreaking part of this entire exchange. It means the gap between where they are and where they need to be is not primarily informational. They have some sense of the reality, and the gap is their willingness to let that reality inform how they're presenting themselves and what they're asking for. So here's the next message, and I quote, so with that being said, how does a total of XK in equity sound? With the X being split and fully paid once we have a call with an investor that is serious. As for equity, if agreed, we would need to speak to the team on Sunday to confirm this amount. We can and are open to also including an advisory fee that we pay out to you if we secure funding. We won't label it as a success fee, more like a contracting fee for advising or whatever, above board and legal for both sides. This fee can be what you normally charge clients who can afford higher costs. End quote. The pressure has now produced 4 separate problems in a single message. 1. Structuring compensation around obtaining investor meeting creates a legal risk because it ties payment to securities solicitation, which can push the arrangement toward regulator broker conduct depending on the facts. 2. Compensation tied to securing investor meetings may be viewed as securities-related solicitation activity, creating potential broker registration risk depending on the surrounding conduct. 3. Recharacterizing a success fee as an advisory or contracting fee does not resolve the issue if the compensation is substantially transaction-based. 4. Parties' inability to pay cash fees does not alter the regulatory analysis where the proposed compensation is still tied to investor access or securities-related activity. For guidance, please see the SEC links below for all the information that you're going to need. So here's the final message, and I quote, all we are trying to do here is get across the first hurdle of investment so we can actually grow this to be the next billion-dollar company. We can all see it's headed that way. End quote.
You serious?
They are asserting a future valuation narrative as though it were present fact, which creates obvious misrepresentation exposure when the underlying company condition does not support the statement. No, they cannot all see that, and an investor certainly cannot see that. An investor reading this sees a team with poor judgment, no message discipline, no respect for its own financial reality, and no real credibility of its own. So it reaches for institutional name drops that collapse under minimal verification. The idea might be good, the product might be great or real, but none of that is visible through this exchange because the people presenting it have buried it completely under the weight of their own desperation and delusion. So now, what do Huey and Dewey and Chaz actually have in common? Well, Chaz is a filmmaker, and Huey and Dewey are startup founders. Chaz is angry. Huey and Dewey are desperate. Chaz is filtering for believers. Huey and Dewey are manufacturing bullshit credibility. Underneath the surface, they are actually identical. They built something real. They believe in it completely. They walked into every conversation absolutely certain that the idea was the asset, that if the right person could just see it clearly enough, the investment would move. None of them understood that the idea is never what's being evaluated first. And so, here's what happens in investor conversations. The investor spends the first few minutes testing plausibility. Does this make sense? Is it market real? Is the timing credible? Has this already been done by someone better positioned to do it? If the answer is yes, the idea is no longer the main question. You are. From that point on, the investor is judging whether you understand your own deal with enough precision to be trusted with theirs. Do you see the weak points without needing them pointed out? Can you answer hard questions without getting defensive? Can you separate what is true from what you want to be true? When something goes wrong, can you handle it directly? Chaz failed every one of those questions before I even finished reading the first paragraph of his message. Huey and Dewey failed them across 5 separate written communications while simultaneously requesting contract misrepresentation, offering phantom equity, and invoking a financial institution in a context it has never occupied. Neither Chaz nor Huey and Dewey knew they were being evaluated on those terms because, well, nobody told them. The people who should be telling them are busy selling frameworks about investor psychology and pitch deck structure and what serious investors want to see and blah, 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 my ass.
It doesn't work that way!
The conversation about the person is the conversation that's bad for business. You cannot sell a course on becoming self-aware. You cannot charge a conference fee to teach someone that the reason their deal isn't closing is them. So nobody says it, and so people keep walking into situations unprepared for the actual evaluation. What fundable actually means. Fundable is not a compliment, and it says nothing about how hard you've worked, how much you sacrificed, or how strongly you believe. Fundable means a rational investor can look at the situation and decide to put investment in on terms they can justify. Most people seeking funding have never built for that definition, but instead built for their own conviction and then gone looking for someone to share it. Chaz is looking for smart people who want to be a part of something significant. And in my opinion, it's hot garbage. Huey and Dewey are looking for someone to get them across the first hurdle so everyone can see what they already know is true. Both of those are descriptions of recruiting disciples, not raising capital. Disciples follow conviction. Investors follow rational cases built on specific evidence about specific situations. You cannot convert one into the other by finding better disciples or making a more compelling emotional appeal. Until you understand the relationship is different, you will keep optimizing the wrong thing. Chaz's project might be generally compelling. It's not. Huey and Dewey might have a product worth real market potential. They don't. So then what is the point of all this? Why am I telling you this? It is that the posture of seeking the investment is itself the disqualification. Founders and indie filmmakers are taught to raise funding. That framing is the disease. Investors do not fund people who present as needing to be chosen. Need is the upstream condition producing every behavior on display in those 2 exchanges, which I read aloud. Chaz auditioning the receiver, Huey and Dewey fabricating a Merrill Lynch relationship. Both are downstream of the same fact. The sender wants something from the receiver, and the want is legible in the writing before the project ever loads. This is why the prep industry is not a fix. It is the engine. Every course on pitching, every accelerator that drills the deck, every bootcamp running investor psychology workshop teaches founders and indie filmmakers how to seek more skillful. The product on offer is improved performance of the exact posture that disqualifies the performer. The more thoroughly someone absorbs the training, the worse they read, because what gets refined is the wanting, not the person. So the inversion is this. Fundraising in the form that you have been sold is not a skill set. It is a condition in which the want has been removed from the person presenting, and the prep industry cannot manufacture that condition because every product it sells reinforces the want it claims to address. So, here are the lessons. Lesson 1. Investors judge the people carrying the deal, not just the idea. Investors spend a huge amount of time assessing the management team, the ability to execute, and whether the people involved can diagnose risk honestly. As I'm currently working with 2, VC decision analysis will tell you that management quality was one of the most important drivers of investment decisions. Lesson 2. Real evidence beats founder interpretation. Any small business guidance and investor practices are literally designed and built around reducing risk with market research, competitive analysis, and diligence. The SBA explicitly frames market research as a way to confirm and improve a business idea and reduce risk, notes that investors often conduct deep diligence by bringing in outside experts to evaluate startups. Lesson 3. Founders routinely develop blind spots around their own companies. Research on managerial overconfidence shows consistent evidence that decision makers can become too confident in their own judgment, which distorts how they assess risk, evidence, and financing choices. Boy, does that all sound familiar. This is why large firms in the real world bring in outside consultants. You need independent judgment, specialized expertise, extra capacity for complex work, and analysis that carries more credibility with boards, regulators, investors, and counterparties who are not attached to your vision. That is standard corporate practice, not a startup quirk or independent film finance jargon. Nobody is telling the thousands of people right now in the middle of a race who are absolutely certain that the reason they can't secure financing is because the right person hasn't seen it yet. The right person has probably already seen that, and that is the point, because no one was there to carry it forward. The idea was never the asset, it was always the person holding it. The gap between where you are and where you need to be is not a better tool, or a warmer introduction, or a bigger name attached. Except you cannot do this work alone, nor can you do it with 21 other producers, all with their own egos and entitlements. The same conviction that gets something off the ground also distorts how it looks from the outside. Once you have sacrificed enough for something, your ability to judge it cleanly starts to degrade. That is why real self-assessment usually requires an outside party. Someone who knows what investors actually see, can identify the weak points before the meeting, and is willing to say it plainly before the market says it for them. That is the work at Rap Consulting. What is your risk-adjusted project profile? Everything that you have been sold about this process was built to keep you chasing access and validation and hope. It was never built to tell you the truth. Return that shit to sender.